Welcome to another exciting episode of Brand Chops, where we're chopping up brands to see what they're made of. I'm Zack Lemear.
And I'm Chris Duhaime. And today we're going to be talking about purpose statements, mission statements, vision statements, and just identifying why they're so important to your brand.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with clients about this. This is very much the foundation of all the things in your brand, and it should lead you forward and it should really dictate all the things that you do. And the biggest piece that this does is it really helps not only empower your sales teams with clarity and focus, but it also helps making business decisions easier. Because if it's against these things, then it's a no-brainer. These have to be really unflappable and really strong. And so, and then in another episode, we can talk about more of the core values aspect of it. But it's really going to help you lead people and attract the right people that you want to hire for leadership, for employees, even attract the right type of clients.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, oftentimes these things kind of get skipped, right? A client goes right into marketing or wants to do a website right off the bat, and they sort of skip over the purpose of what they're doing all this for, right? What is their why? What is the reason they get up in the morning? What is the reason that they're even doing this business in the first place? They could be doing any other thing, right? So finding a reason or a purpose for the company, whether it's a cause that you're attached to, whether it's a particular environmental issue that you're trying to promote or give back to. There's a lot of different reasons why somebody would do or build a business. And so it's just really identifying what those are in a purpose statement to really understand what you do, why you do it, how you do it, and that sort of contribution you make and the impact that contribution has on your industry, on the world. And, not to make it seem bigger than it is, but the goal is really to just give you a reason to get up in the morning and give your team a reason to stand behind the company. And I think that's really important when you're building a brand.
And when you really define your purpose, it really helps define the vision and the mission as well. If you think about this as a personal thing, right? And I struggled with this a lot myself in the past, where I felt like I had ultimate drive, but I had accomplished a lot of the things that I was set out to do, and I had lack of purpose. So that's a trap. That's a very dangerous place to be, because you could be focusing your energy in a big way in the wrong places. Like if you're just digging a hole and you'll say, "Oh, I'll figure out what this hole is for at the end. Maybe it's a pool, maybe it's a grave, I don't know, but I'm just digging," right? And that's not great use of your time or energy, right? Now, if I'm saying personally, my purpose is to be the example. I'm really trying to be the example for my kids, for my employees, and to level myself up as much as possible so I can level up everyone else around me. And everything that I do is rooted in that. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing it, right? So it's easy for me to make a decision of where I'm going to spend my time and my energy, because if it's not something that's being the example or leveling up other people around me or giving myself more resources to share, then it's not something that I'm interested in doing. And it took me a while, because I was just digging holes for the sake of digging holes. And I had a lot of energy to dig those holes, but I was getting nowhere.
Yeah, you've used the analogy, sort of like the compass analogy in the past too. Can you just go over that real quick? I can never remember it fully, but I know you do a great job of talking about that. So
yeah, so I think a lot of agencies will give you a map. And a map is interesting because it's seemingly the right thing that you need, but it really gives you all the directions at the same time. So if you're dropped in the forest with a map, you could be lost for the rest of your life. But if you're dropped in the forest with a compass, you will find your way out, because you cannot argue with north. And that's the purpose, the vision, and the mission. It's giving you that brand compass that is your true north direction, that makes it so easy to figure out any map you want to go on. You'll know where north is. You get trapped in the woods and you look for the moss on the tree, that's still pointing north. You look for the position of the sun, that's still pointing in a direction. So you've got to have a compass mark, because again, you cannot argue with north. And when you figure out your north, which is your why, then everything else becomes easier to do. Everyone else, when you know what you stand for, it's easier for people to stand with you and to stand behind you.
absolutely. There's some big brands that do really good. Apple, Patagonia, those are some, larger brands that are sort of practicing what they preach, essentially. And so when Patagonia is talking about giving back to the environment, and all their decisions are based around that, right? They're using materials that are based around environmental safety and making sure that the environment's going to be protected. It's how they build their material, the material it's shipped in, the give back that they do at the end of the year when it comes to a percentage of profits. There's a lot of different things that that particular brand does very well to make sure that they're on brand, on purpose, and their mission and vision is all in alignment.
It's a great point. And when you have all these things figured out, you will attract the right people and you will attract the right clients. Whole Foods is a great example, right? Whole Foods doesn't make sense that it should exist. It is an expensive grocery store that most people call it whole paycheck, right? Because you're going to go in there and everything's double the price. But why do people still go there in droves no matter what the economy is doing? Because the promise that they make, their purpose is to make sure that every product they carry subscribes to a specific outline of requirement. It's got to be organic. It's got to be grass fed. You know you're paying a little bit more money, but you also know you're going to Whole Foods to get the higher quality of food. And you know they're going to carry brands or they won't carry brands that go against this value. And they are super successful. They were so successful that Amazon bought them. They were successful way before Amazon. Amazon turned it into something else, but it still holds the values true. And they also are great at displaying those values to the public because people show up and they'll pay the extra money because, and I'm one of those people, I'll go there because I know that every single piece of beef in that butcher case is grass-fed beef. And I'm very careful about what I put in my body, and I don't want any cornmeal and whatever, because that's really bad for the animal, which turns out to be bad for me. And so I go there and I pay the extra money, and I'm glad and happy to do it because they subscribe to these values and this purpose and this vision and mission, and they make good on it every single day. And in a previous episode, we're talking about a brand is really just the promises you keep. And it's the relationship that you build based on those promises. And if you make a bunch of promises and break them, you're still making a promise and keeping it, but you're now the promise breaker. That's the only promise you've made, that every promise you make will not ever be met. And so you've got to be careful about the consistency. But when you figure out your purpose, your vision, and your mission, it is now your job to make sure that every single person inside or affiliated with this company is aligned and shouting it from the rooftops, especially your sales team.
Yeah. And so we were talking about some really large brands and how they're sort of integrating this purpose statement into their everyday branding. Let's talk about how a smaller business can sort of incorporate this purpose into their message, into their website, things along those lines. What are some ways that we can incorporate some of this purpose statement into smaller brands that don't have these gigantic budgets?
There's a local brand that I really like, and I was working on doing a little case study on it. It's called Restoration Cafe, and it's local to Manchester, New Hampshire. And one of their things is, again, they have all whole, organic. They have a lot of vegan food, but when they really figured out what their purpose was, they're going to have this type of food, they're going to have this type of environment, and they're going to have this kind of values. I mean, all the way down to the types of napkins that they use and the type of boxes that they use, and they're all recycled. And then that translates into the visuals. So you walk in there and they've got apothecary things all over the place because the vibe of an apothecary is very all natural. It's very organic. It's very healthy for you. It's medicine. And their purpose is that food is medicine. Maybe not in those words, but they do an excellent job on every little thing in there, from the metal that they choose, the decorations that they choose, the way that they write things on the cup, the cups that they use. And it's a small shop, and it is very, very popular, and it's not in the greatest part of the neighborhood either. But they've been around for a while, and they do an excellent job on defining their vision, their mission, their purpose, and then having that executed across every aspect of their business. And you can tell even the people that work there are the type of people that align with that kind of food, that kind of lifestyle. And you've got to be careful of having all of this in alignment so that when you're hiring and firing, when you're getting leadership, when you're doing public relations, when you're thinking about advertising, when you're thinking about brand alliances, I mean, even when bigger brands or even smaller brands want to get influencers, you want to make sure that they're the influencers that have the same values and the same purpose, mission, and vision that are aligned with you. Otherwise, it's going to cause conflict and it's going to cause confusion, and it's going to make your brand look bad.
Yeah. The way they've probably established this purpose and this purpose statement of their company is probably just thinking beyond whatever it is that they're doing, right? So whatever industry you're in, when you're fixing toilets or doing HVAC, like, yes, you're doing those things, but your purpose is to make life easier for other people and to make it more comfortable for them. So your purpose, sort of what you're doing has a more of a bigger meaning at that point. It's looking at whatever it is in your industry and looking past the thing that you're actually accomplishing and looking at what the end result is and how that's impacting your clients, how that's maybe impacting the community. So there's a lot of sort of trickle down that some of the things that you may not even think twice about. You're like, oh, I just fix pipes. Well, no, you fix pipes, but it makes life easier for that particular business to run so that they can do their job, which makes their clients happy, which makes them more willing to go do things out in the community, right? There's a trickle down effect that happens when you're sort of putting the purpose statement as at the forefront of what you're doing, and then that helps you get behind it a little bit more. You're doing more than just fixing pipes. You're helping the community grow. So that just helps you position what you're doing every day, just in a different light. Look, when you're building your purpose statement, obviously look at all the things that you're doing, but look at that sort of contribution that you're giving to the community and what impact that has on the people that you work with, that you live around, and how it's able to sort of elevate their lives, right? So I think those are things you want to look at when you're building out your purpose statement, and you want to start aligning yourself with. And then if there's any good charities that you can be involved with, or any ways to give back that is still in alignment with what you're doing, those are good ways to sort of align yourself with those sort of organizations, and that becomes sort of part of your brand too, right? You're the company that also does this with your profits, or your team goes out and volunteers with this group every year. So there's things you can do and be part of your community that will align with your business and make everything seem like it's all part of the plan, basically.
No, it's true. And when you do have these dialed in, and it has to really be in this order, your purpose, your vision, and then your mission, and then you can dial into your core values. When you do that, it starts to form your brand promise. And that's how you can make sure that you're doing everything consistently every day, that you're aligning with the right people, that you're being seen the way you want to be seen. And if you're not being seen the way you need to be seen, you have that compass. You're saying, okay, well, hey, I'm going west. I need to go north. I've got the compass. I'm going to shift direction because I have that dialed in and I have a foundation which can make a corrective act. And a lot of people don't have this. A lot of people will start a business. They won't even really do the research of why they're doing it. They're just, again, they have lots of drive, but no purpose. And so I'm going to start a business because I want to start a business. I've always had a business, but they forget to figure out, is there a need for this business? What problem am I solving? Who needs this? Right. So in the case of Restoration Cafe, they saw a gap in healthy food in Manchester, right? To this degree. So they said, okay, we're going to produce this, and this is how we're going to operate. And our values are, we're not going to use these types of ingredients. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And that affected everything down to what font for their menu. You do this first, and all of these other pieces of parts of your business development and your branding become much easier to figure out because you have a compass directing you north.
Absolutely. And I know, we always talk about the purpose is usually sort of that North Star. That's the first thing that we have companies do. And then the next thing we talk about is vision and mission. And I don't think we're going to have time to talk about all that during this episode. So I think maybe that's what we'll talk about in the next podcast, will be how those sort of take your company to that next level. A lot of people know about mission, but I think the introduction of vision and the purpose statement will still bring it all together and really produce that foundational level that small businesses sort of skip over when they're building out their brand.
Absolutely. And it's like, you've got a compass that points you north, right? Now you need to have a vision of where you want to go. And then you have to have the mission on how to get there. And all of those things have to happen in that order. And a lot of people just find a mission that's most of the time actually their vision, and then they just call it quits. And they think that's great. Or they'll start with mission and then vision, which doesn't make sense because you can't have a mission to achieve a vision before the vision has been set. And then it's all driven by a purpose that doesn't exist. So in this day and age, especially with millennials and Gen Z, which has got the most buying power out of any generation before them, they're very cause-based. They're the ones who will work for you and they will buy from you because you care about something that they care about. And that is going to be one of the best assets you can have for your brand, is aligning with the people that care about what you care about. And then they will become loyal customers, loyal brand advocates, and loyal employees even.
Yeah. I think that's right.
So next week, I guess we'll be talking more about the vision and the mission in that order, and then we can even break into the core values. And all of these things, the purpose, the vision, the mission, and the core values, those things create your brand compass. And when you figure that out, you will have so much less headaches, so much less friction. You'll be able to empower your sales team. It'll attract and retain better quality clients and employees and leadership. And you'll be able to build a business and not just have a job that you're stuck in and you can't walk away from because you don't have anybody that believes in what you believe in because you haven't really stood for anything. When you define what you stand for, it's much easier for people to stand behind you and with you.
Yep, absolutely. So next time we'll be talking about vision and mission, and we hope you were able to get some good tidbits out of this episode. And we'll see you guys next week.
Tune in next time where we're chopping up brands to see what they're made of. Brand Chops is brought to you by the fine people at Pivot Creative. Pivot Creative is a full-service branding and marketing agency that partners with businesses to build brands that connect so that every dollar you spend is an investment and not an expense. If you need some branding or marketing guidance, a website, a new brand, or want to learn more about one of the topics we cover on the show, please reach out to us at pivotcreative.com. If you know someone that would benefit from learning more from one of our shows, please share the episode. Visit brand-chops.com. And as always, like and subscribe if you find this content to be helpful. See you next time on Brand Chops, where we chop up brands to see what they're made of.